You want to fight crime? Let's get dangerous.
Hi, it's Saturday, everybody, and guess what? It's another time frame where we have to do another episode of From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher. As you already know, I am Joe D. McPhee, and I hope that you're having a good Saturday here. Wish I could be a little bit more chipper here, but I'm just trying to ease my mind, relax, and try to do a couple of other things here and there. Before we really get into the show itself here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the business ends of things here, such as reminding you guys that Stupid O'Clock happens 1 hour into our show. If we go into a second hour tonight here, that is followed up by Last Man Standing, where you get a little bit of a respite until Monday, where you have Nevermind the Furthermore with Nicholas Tockert at 10 a.m. on Monday. And yes, there will be another Comic Book Spectrum here at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time on Thursday. And on that note, guess what time it is? It is that time once again for us to do one of your favorite spots here, but we're going to give it a couple more moments here because there's a couple of other things that I really want to. No, I don't. Well, we'll forego that here. We'll forego that, but it is that time once again for new comic book pickups for the week here. Now, the one thing that I wasn't certain here was this book right here. I know this is a 1 in 25. This is from the Tom King run, which I'm not really digging that much, but it's a 1 in 25. Oh, this is an issue 1. This is a copy of issue 1 in 25, the foil. I knew it was a foil. I just knew it was a 1 in 25. So much glare off of this foil, but yeah, the foil. Okay, there we go. Foil goodness there, but it's a dark foil cover goodness of issue number 1, and the back is a little bit split, so I gotta find some mylar to put this in shortly. But that came this week. And we got some Lois Lanes here. We got Lois Lane 117. And we got some comments here. Yep, there's Tori. Hi, Tori. Yep, Tori's here. So we finally got another foil here for the Tom King run. I still gotta catch up on the latter issues of that run. I'm still not digging what he's doing, but like I said, he got more people to read Wonder Woman, so I'm still happy about that. Lois Lane 117 was the second one that held up here. Then we got Lois Lane 136. Now we're getting towards the tail end of the run. I believe that this was the last issue of the series of Lois Lane 136. I believe that's the last issue. And then we got 133, where she's pretty much a walking bomb. And then we got 130, Lois Lane 130. And I forgot what type of gun that she had here, but pretty much it is what it is. She shoots Superman. And then we got the short-lived Dragonfly series. I believe Dragonfly only went 8 issues here, so we got issue number 5 and the last issue number 8 that came. This is going to be followed up by volume 1, 221. I'm not certain how many copies of 221 that I have here, so it could be a good possibility that one of my reader beaters copies of this issue may come to an auction block near you soon. And then we got more copies of Marvel Chillers. This is Marvel Chillers number 6, featuring Tigra. I'm still working on getting Giant Size Creatures 1, which is technically the first appearance of Tigra. Nonetheless here. And then we got a Doctor Strange 48, which is the first meetup between Doctor Strange and Brother Voodoo. That came in the mail. Marvel Chillers number 4. I think this is like either the 4th or 5th copy of that. I just now noticing the chip right there on that. I wasn't paying too much attention on that, but there's a little bit of a chip there. So it's not a bad copy here. Again, closer to getting my volume 1 of Mr. Miracle completed here. I'm missing, I think, 4 issues, and this is after the original after the original Kirby run. So it's like I think I'm missing like 18 to 24 here. And there it is. This is issue 11. This is like a 3rd or 4th copy of issue 11. And then we got New Avengers number 9. This is during the Infinity. This is the Kirkman run of New Avengers here. Nothing new or different here. And now I'm trying to figure out why the dog is barking here. Well, something going on upstairs. I'm not going to worry about it right now. And then we got some more Riskayer books that came in this week. So we got things like Kinky Click Comics number 1. This is a oldie but goodie, but this is like, not safe for work stuff here. And then we got Blonde Avenger number 1, another one. And then Strips number 1 and number 2. And then the last one that came in is Triple X Women number 1. And yeah, the post-it note is there because that was not safe for work and not safe for this show, because we do have little bitty kids watching this thing here. So, I'm going to be, full disclosure, make certain that everything is safe for everybody to kind of partake in. So that was new comic book pickups for the week here. And some of the stuff is going to go to storage and other stuff is going to stay here. Mostly it's going to be, the majority of stuff is going. I know I'm just about to get ready to take some more Lois Lane stuff and everything to that magnitude to storage and everything. But nevertheless, we're almost at the point where we're ready for our topic for the evening here. I was hoping that more people would show up before we actually get this far in the show. The reason being is because it is a topic that I ran through a couple of people, and I got some difference of opinion, and it's really one of those things that we really got to talk about more so than anything. And the topic is the question that is posed here. It's like, are we as collectors to blame for high prices on comics, especially in this modern market here? Because when you truly think about it, everybody's up here, complaining about all these different variants coming out, all of these 1 in 25s, 1 in 50s, 1 in 100s, the amount of variant covers, the amount of not safe for work covers, the amount of if I could say it this way, then not just the amount, just the sheer number of different titles for one character. the whole trend of following artists and not the storylines, stuff to that magnitude. It's like, are we really as collectors to blame for the inflated prices for these books? And when I talk about inflated prices, I'm not talking about all the, is it our fault that, comic books are almost like, $7, $8 a pop? Not, that's not the aspect that I'm going with here. What I'm talking about is after a new book comes out, let's take, like, for example, this 1 in 25. This 1 in 25 technically has a dollar price associated from DC. On a day that you buy it on brand new, on that Wednesday for brand new comic book day, I'm just taking a look to see what was the cover price here. It has a $7.99 cover price here. That's on the actual book. I want to see if I could get it in focus here, for you can see that it says $7.99 here. It says $7.99 right there. It has $7.99 cover on it. But guess what? This book was not $7.99. I didn't buy it for $7.99. I bought it for a lot more. And when I say a lot more, it's like it was nowhere close to $7.99. So for this 1 in 25 to be more than what, more than pay more than what $7.99 is supposed to get me, that's a problem. Now, is it because of speculation and the false rarity that is being placed on modern books now because it is a foil and everything? Yes, part of that is part of the problem. But the market, there's a thing called market demand. And are we creating a market where comic book stores can get away with something like this? If it's $7.99 on the actual book when it comes out, and then you go to the comic book store, and you have to pay $15 for a $7.99 book, all because it's a 1 in 25, as opposed to your standard A cover. Now, I'm not saying it's the comic book store's fault, because sometimes they have to take into consideration. It's like, hey, if we got 40 people that normally buys Wonder Woman, we barely, it's like we have to have some extra stock. They might only get 2 of them. And because they only might be able to get 2, therefore it's like, well, we got to make a premium to kind of make our money back for the exorbitant order. I get that. But here's the other problem that I really want people to truly address when we bring up this topic. Even with that being stated, which again, logical, fair. The first week that it comes out, let's just put a hypothetical price about $15. The following week is now a $50 book. Something's wrong. Something's wrong there, because there's not really a demand like that for a issue that is more common than anything else. Meaning that, are you putting more of a price on this type of book and saying that there is a demand, all because somebody wants the foil, or there's a whole bunch of people asking for that foil copy? I tend to beg to differ, to say that there's hundreds and hundreds of people asking for the foil. There's not really that many people that are going out there like that and having that type of demand here. Yeah, there's rabid Wonder Woman fans that probably would buy every cover, but there's not that it's not that big of a demand for a 1 in 25 or a 1 in 50 or 1 in 100. Only the higher echelon collectors are just doing that. So if that's the case here, the higher echelon people, or the more, if I could say, collectors that got money in their pockets doing this, are they really, really helping the rest of us out here? Because they're kind of like driving up the price only because they were able to get their hands on the book before everybody else, or they was able to afford it when it first came out, or they made special arrangements, and then they're up there. It's like, well, I got 5 of these now. I could do a quick flip and make what I paid back. I mean, it's just the market, but are we really shooting ourselves in the foot by doing this type of stuff, especially for newer books? Older books is a little bit different, but I want to start the conversation with the newer books first before we get into older books, because I'm not going to say this is a problem with modern books and all this other stuff. It's like, no, as a hobby altogether, there's a problem with this, where we inflate, and when I say we as collectors kind of sort of inflate numbers, or at least the demand for a particular issue where it really isn't there, and the prices are just not there. I see you, Tori. Hold on. It's like I stopped buying anything but as a cover, as unless it's a super cheap. And but the thing here is that what you buy plays on the overall price for the book the following week. Like, for example, what was it? Ultimate Spider-Man #1, the A cover. When that A cover was first released and it was sold out all over the place, it was awfully hard to get the A cover. They had all of these other variants. If you wanted an Ultimate Spider-Man 1, and I'll talk about the recent incarnation of Ultimate Spider-Man 1, they had all these other variants, but you couldn't get the A. And if you had an opportunity to get the A cover after New Comic Book Wednesday, you are paying a premium. And when I say a premium, you're not paying that cover price for an A cover. You're paying, maybe somewhere on the outskirts of anywhere between 5 to 10 times the price for that A cover. And that, to me, that doesn't bode well. And considering the fact that if there really was that much of a demand for it, it would have meant that all copies of issue #1 would have flew off the shelves, not just the A cover. And these are the types of problems that I want to truly address, as far as, are we really shooting ourselves in the foot when it comes to these inflated prices that we're seeing now? And yeah, not that run, LOL. Yep. Yeah, I only buy A. And that's the thing. That phenomena is happening in modern comics than anything else. And you see that inflation of price after New Comic Book Wednesday, where one moment it's cover price, and then the next moment it's whatever market value is after that first week. And I don't believe in that first week there is that much of a demand for a book, unless you're, like I said, one of those collectors that just have extra discretionary money that just buys everything, or just heavy speculators that think that they could flip anything for more than what it's worth. And the example that I gave, it was Ultimate Spider-Man #1, the A cover. If you only buy A, if you didn't get to your comic book store in fast enough time, and you're not a part of a pull list, you're pretty much up the creek without a paddle on getting that A cover. You will have to get that B cover or C cover at cover price. And if they didn't have the A or B or C cover, then you have to go into like the 1 in 25s, the 1 in 50s, and 1 100s. So, or wait for that second printing. And that, to me, sets a very weird precedence as far as what is the actual totals for print runs now. And the whole thing about speculating based upon covers. And that's just weird. It just seems very weird in the modern aspect of it when it comes to determining actual value for books in the modern age. one moment, the A cover, stays at cover price, or you could get it, maybe like a dollar or two more, but that B cover might be something else here. And it looks like we got Aaron in the house here. Hopefully he caught the beginnings of the conversation here, because right now I'm posing the question dealing with the more modern comics here, as far as, are we as collectors shooting ourselves in the foot, forcing these prices to be inflated, dealing with modern issues here. And it said, once again, I'm at a friend's house. And then Tori is saying, to be honest, unless it's a book I have been buying for decades, I tend to buy trade. DC broke my Supergirl run, and I'm feeling that the new run. That's like I'm not feeling the new run because because they are making her backwards. So trade, yeah. But again, even with trades, there's still going to be people that would spec on trades too. But you don't see as much as a markup on trades like you do with individual issues. But I get what you're saying. Here. Yeah, I don't view comics as stocks. And that's one of the reasons why it throws me off with the modern age here, Aaron. It really does, because when we grew up, and I include Tori in this, when we were growing up, to have an issue number one is to have an issue number one. It did not matter what variant cover it was. To get an issue one, you got an issue one. In the modern age, this issue one has a different value assessed to it, as opposed to the A cover or the B cover or the C cover or the 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000 or whatever ratio that they come up with. And that aspect throws the concept of, run collecting for a loop, because now for some people to say I'm a completionist, or I collect the whole entire run, some people would say it's like, well, if you don't have every last copy of that issue number one, you don't have the complete run, or if you don't have every last variant, you can't say that you have the complete run of a title. And I'm up here like, that's silly. The run of the title is per issue. So if let's say, like I showed earlier, Dragonfly only has 8 issues. If you got all 8 issues, you have the complete run. It does not matter about which variant you have and which variant you don't have. If you got all 8 issues, you can read the whole entire story and you got the run. And that's what goes on here as a whole. But this modern age, as far as how people view collecting, it's not really off-putting, but it's just different. And like you said, it's almost like, they're trying to make a modify, if I could say, stock exchange type aspect. They're trying to use those principles. Now, granted, supply and demand is part of it, but that's a part of anything. Supply and demand is dealing with anything when it comes to any type of product that you put out for sale. That has nothing more or less to do with it. And there's Parallax with the rest of the gang here. She is now officially in the house here. And that being said, I won't spend $4 or $5 for a comic to be $1 the next year. But that's the thing. We don't know. We don't know what is going to be $1 next year. But the point I was bringing up, Aaron, is that you paying for, if you pay $4 or $5 on New Comic Book Wednesday, you get to that following Wednesday, that $4 or $5 comic book is now somewhere either $8, $10, $20, $25, $30 for no apparent reason. Other than the fact that, people are just willing to pay that much money for it, all because they wasn't able to get it on New Comic Book Wednesday. And that's one of the weird things about that. It's just like, are these books being printed in such small quantities now that is there really that much of a demand for it? And like I was pointing out to Tori dealing with Ultimate Spider-Man 1, the A cover. That's the A cover. That is supposed to be like the standard de facto cover for that book at the cheapest price. Now, if it was in that hot of demand, if that title was in that hot of demand, all covers would have been sold out, not just the A cover. People had copies of B and C and all the other ratio variants. At A cover, you couldn't get your hands on, and if you did find a place that had it, and you did not get it on New Comic Book Day, like I told Tori, you were paying anywhere between 5 to 10 times the value of that cover price to get it, which doesn't make any sense. It puts us back in that quandary. It's like, did we really shoot ourselves in the foot when it comes to that? Is it really something that we as collectors are doing to ourselves, all because it's the new niche thing that's coming out, and everybody thinks that it's going to be the next greatest money book? I just don't know. I mean, that's why I'm posing the question to all collectors here. Rough. Yep. It's so dumb. Now I love covers, but now I just buy old books. And that's the thing. That's going to be, like I said, I'm starting with modern books first before we get to the older stuff, because I do have some things to say about older books too. And reason I'm starting with modern books first, because it's easier to explain the trend that is happening with modern books and then come to how it's now being applied to older books. And it's getting scary out there, very scary. And it's like I saw some small hawk literal unironical say the best 800 books I have ever spent on a comic book on a Spider-Gwen #1 a few years ago, a 1 in 200. And I'm like, yeah, you're a moron. But again, that 1 in 200 purchase for $600, is that book really worth it? And then on top of that, with as many copies of Spider-Gwen 1 out there, how is this ratio variant $600 when it's really not a overwhelming demand for it? Only the so-called collectors with money are seeking that out, because the average person who just want to collect the run, they could probably care less. If they come across it and they come across it in the wild for a decent price, they will get it, but they're not actively seeking it in that aspect here. In other words, there's not thousands and thousands of people. I mean, just like, a whole nation worth of people trying to get the 1 in 200 variant. It's just, that's not happening. Yeah, but don't believe the hype. And that's what it's kind of coming back down to. It's like, are we as creators creating so much of a hype amongst ourselves that we're, like I said, we're inflating the value of these books before it's time. I mean, I never understood with comic books per se. The first week that it comes out, it's cover price, and then the following week, you see that with certain books, that value doubles, triples, quadruples, quintuples, 10 times, 20 times, 30 times its cover price over hype. Not because it is scarce, not because it can't be, not because it can't, the comic book store can't order some more from that print run. It's not because, it's a limited quantity per se. It's because of hype. It's because of this illusion of demand. And it's frightening. It is kind of frightening. And I know there's going to be people who watch this show later on and be like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You just, putting, you just looking at things the wrong way. It's like, maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm not. Now, ratio variance, I get it. That's to me is market manipulation in its finest in its own way because it creates its own scarcity. But when you look at any issue as a whole, and like I said, I pick on Dynamite a lot because Dynamite has a tendency to say it's like, here we got a brand new Red Sonja versus such and such, and here's all 13 variants of issue number one. Why does that number one have to have 13 different variants? I don't know. But that's market manipulation. That is creating hype. That is creating, if I could say, a buzz for people who are into cover art and maybe not the story to buy into it. I could pretty much say the same thing with Zenescope. Because Zenescope books is like there's certain artists, it's like they have like their standard, and then they get all these different artists to draw different covers, and 9 times out of 10, the not safe for work stuff sells very, very more so than anything else. People forget about the story, they just want the artwork. But that gets into that other quagmire that I brought up the other day about is comic books slowly becoming a poor man's art gallery. Meaning that instead of paying an artist $2, $3, $4, $5, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 for a one-of-one art print or a one-of-one work, they rather go down to the comic book store and pay like $40, $50 for a 1-in-100, get a bag and board, and be like, see what this is what I got. Now I'm going to get a comic capsule and put it up in there, and it's going to have the UV protection. I can display it all that I want. I mean, just kind of like it is what it is, in that aspect. But in the bigger scheme of things, because you bought it at that high price point, are you really helping your fellow collector out in that aspect? Because if you buy something at 40 and no one else is buying it at 40, and when I say nobody else, I mean literally nobody else is buying it at 40, and the next person come in that wants it, it sets that baseline at 40. And that's the weird thing about fair market value. It's based upon averages. So you have to think about it. One person buy 1-in-100 at 80, another one buys it at 150, another one buys it at 200, another one buys one at 500. It's still going to get averaged out. It's still going to get averaged out to maybe somewhere about like 120, 150 bucks. And that's still out of the price range for the greater majority of collectors out there. But it doesn't make much sense to me in that aspect of, does your desire outweighs the fact that you might be setting a benchmark for what that book actually should cost? And it's like, yeah, I have been sticking with older books being purchased. Well, I want to get to older books. Oh, wait till I get to talk about the older books here. But I'm bringing up these topics now for modern because I'm going to apply them even more harshly with older books because it doesn't make any sense. I literally got and graded Silver Age books that will never lose its value and graded for less than $800. Yeah. I have sold the first appearance of Spider-Gwen 3 years ago for $500, and that book will never be worth that until. Yep, exactly. AA Ron is like when I bought my copy off the stands here, they literally were falling off the rack because no one cared or wanted it. And I was like, oh, Edge of Spider-Verse. Yeah. And bought a copy. Yeah, later I sold a copy that I bought off the shelf. Yep. I still have mine. You know, again, you know, Parallax's story reminds me of Ultimate Fallout 4. And people who know me, it's like I'm one of those people that I don't really go back and look at. Over the last 2 years, I've been going back and looking at a lot of the stuff that I've purchased in the past. And Ultimate Fallout 4, as much as people was talking about, it's like, oh, it's a worthwhile book to get, and it was going up and 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 up in value. And I'm up here, it's like, yeah, I got a couple of Miles Morales books, but I don't think I had Ultimate Fallout 4. I didn't think I had a first printing of it and this, that, and the other. And I was like, I'm not even going to waste my money on it trying to buy it now. And lo and behold, when I go to my storage area and go through my books, I had a unopened Ultimate Fallout 4 still in the poly bag. Yeah, I did end up getting that bad boy graded. I believe it is either a 9.2 or 9.4. I wasn't one of the lucky ones to get like the 9.8, but even at a 9.2 or 9.4 is still a good book. But I'm not one of those ones that's like, oh, I got a 9.4. Now let me try to flip it for like a couple of $1,000s. It's like, no. I bought it because it's like it's his first appearance, and I kind of dig the character at the time, and I forgot about that I had it. And I'm seeing how people are up here like, oh, I gotta get it, I gotta have 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 it. And then up here it's like, oh, I'm telling myself by seeing all that hype, it's like it would be nice to have one. And I'm up here thinking, back in the day, I didn't buy it off the shelf. I was like, I probably missed out on that. No big deal. It's like if I get an opportunity to get it for cheap, I'll get it for cheap. Then lo and behold, it was already in my collection. Now, would I like to get another one? Sure. But not right now. I'm not going to buy it at that price, at the inflated price. Yeah, with the first Captain Marvel BS, that's not her first appearance, right? Exactly. I mean, it's just all this stuff is weird. Like Monica Rambeau, I know I got. Did I get both of them graded or just the one? I think I got her first appearance up under her own title graded. But yeah, I mean, just certain things that if I want it back, I would pay what, $100 tops. Even if that, because there's going to be people that going to have collections and stuff and be like, I really don't want this, I just needed to go because there's financial constraints that they have on it. They're not trying to play the long game as far as get them biggest bang for their buck when it's a dire emergency to sell something. So yeah, you could probably get it for less than 100 if the cars fell in the right place. Well, Joe, if I need a key to fill the run sometime, I'll throw down. I mean, but even with keys to throw down. And like I said, I want to shift gears to older books because that's where I have another problem about inflating prices. But we're still talking about modern stuff as of right now. But even with the modern stuff being the way that it is, it's like even filling in keys is it's exorbitant. It's just like it doesn't make any sense. It's like a book that is less than 10 years old should not be beyond like maybe at best shouldn't be no more than like a $15 book, on average, unless it's like a very, very, very low print count. And when I say very low print count, we're talking about print counts that's below 10,000. If it's over 10,000 copies and it's not, and on top of that, it's not from like an independent source or a small press, it's from a bigger company, lo and behold, it's like they're holding back some issues. Like, I don't think they would ever do like a 10,000 print run or something like that unless it's like a book that they were just testing the market with. Yeah, Ultimate Fallout 4, New Mutants 98 were literally dollar bin books fathers for years. Ultimate Fallout 4, I don't think it was dollar bin fodder, but yeah, New Mutants 98, yep. It was new. It was in those dollar bins, and I agree with you. Ultimate Fallout 4, even when I was when I remember when it first came out, it wasn't in dollar bins or anything like that. That was pretty much a hard book to come by in first printing. Because even back then they didn't do, second and third printings until more recently. But when the first print came out, it was a hard book to come by. It was a very hard book to come by. I think it took maybe about like 2 years before the second printing came out, or the facsimile of it, the red Marvel one. It took like maybe like 2 years before that one came out, and then a couple more years after that, the second printing, where they had variant covers again, which drove up the market and drove up the prices on getting just a simple Fallout 4 issue. It doesn't make any sense. You don't even. She's being sarcastic again. Yeah, I'll be back hopefully. Okay, not a problem. Yeah, I bought three copies polybag of Ultimate Fallout 4, and they were first announced were first the Spider-Verse movies, and that was 12, yeah. But by that time, people were kind of like, oh, the Miles Morales controversy is over. Nobody's really, looking for these books anymore. I know. I don't even remember where. I remember getting off. I barely remember getting off the shelf. If I did get it off, I know I got it off the shelf because it was still in the poly bag. I just don't remember when. I think I remember which store I got it from, but I don't remember when I actually did get it. But saying all that to say, in the modern era of books, it just baffling, especially since we're paying anywhere between $4.99, $5.99, $6.99, $7.99, and $8.99 and $9.99 per book. And if you happen to miss it on that new comic book day, to be prepared to pay, anywhere between double to 10 times as much, depending on the hype surrounding it. That to me just blows my mind. And for the fact that we are willing to pay for it as collectors just makes me wonder, are we really shooting ourselves in the foot? Especially when it comes to ratios. Because like I said before, this one has $7.99 on it. I did not pay $7.99 for this book. I paid close to 4 times that amount for this book. But nevertheless, it is what it is. Now, as I promised, I'm going to shift gears from modern to older books. Here's a problem that I have with older books. I'm going to start working my way backwards. I got a problem with people and their personal nostalgia allowing their, if I could say, their need and desire to outweigh fiscal sense in these types of matters here. And I know you guys like, what do you mean by, desire versus fiscal? Perfect example. I really want to get Amazing Spider-Man 300. That's the book that for me. I need that first Venom. I'm willing to pay over $1,000 for it because it's just that much in demand. Okay, I'll give you that. A lot of people don't have Amazing Spider-Man 300, not in its first printing. Now I'm just only looking at first printing because I know for a fact that book has been reprinted over several different times here. But yet people are willing to pay the exorbitant amount of money for Amazing Spider-Man 300. Now, I have also looked at things such as the census for CGC, CBCS, and everything. And when I could go to both of those and see that there's still close to over 50,000 copies of that they graded, let alone other copies of Amazing Spider-Man 300 that are still in the wild. Why in the world is that book in four-figure digits? It shouldn't be. It is not that rare. The amount of possible books available has not shrunken to the aspect where it's few and far between to come across one. So why in the world are we paying four figures for this book? If anything, mid to high three figures, okay, I might see your argument for that. But when you get into four figures, and when I say four figures, I'm talking about well over 1,000. When we get into like that $2,000 and $3,000 and $4,000 range for a book that is that common, I got a problem. Another book that I see in that same category, Hulk 181. As many times as that book has been reprinted over and over and over and over and over again, to get a actual 181 first print, considering the fact that they're still close to, if I remember correctly, I think that was closer to still 40,000 copies that have been graded in between CBCS and CGC, plus the ones that are still out there in the wild. We shouldn't be in the five figures for that. The problem with all of this, and this is why I wanted to get into the older books the way that I wanted to, is like, let's get the modern stuff out the way before I could show you at least, the hype train of when a hype train gets placed into your desires, as opposed to nostalgia. Now, nostalgia is playing into people's desires, where now people are willing to pay, five figures, upwards five figures, for 9.8 copies of that book. And I'm up here, I was like, I get it. I get it. It kind of gets into that whole thing here. Yeah, first villain is ridiculous, and it is. It is, and I'm seeing up here, and Tori, you said it best. It's like, how many different trades have there been where they show first Venom and reprinted Amazing Spider-Man 300? There's several reprintings of it. There have been several reprintings of the issue, not as Spider-Man 300 per se, or second and third printings in that aspect, and facsimiles and everything. But for that particular first printing, there's still a lot of copies of it still available out there in the wild, where it doesn't dictate the price that people are saying is fair market value. So it begs to ask, did we shoot ourselves in the foot as collectors to overpay for a book, to overpay for Hulk 181, to overpay for a lot of these other books? One book that I kind of wish that I had, but I couldn't bring myself to buying one, is Giant Size X-Men 1. Now, mind you, there has been several reprintings of Giant Size X-Men number 1, and the one that I do have graded is Classic X-Men number 1. Why? Because Classic X-Men number 1 was an actual reprinting of Giant Size X-Men 1 plus the extra story in the back end of it, of a special side story. I have that graded. I have that number 1 graded. So it is what it is. He's like, I have to reprint in good. So, yeah. But yet we got people who desires that first printing and they're willing to spend that high value money for it. I'm not saying that I'm not going to comment on their purchase here, but I do question, it's like, are you really letting your desire take over from your fiscal sense here? Meaning that if you're willing to shell out, and like I said, Hulk 181, if you're willing to shell out 15 grand for Hulk 181, I get to the point where it's like, with as many of those that are there, it's like 15 grand. It's like, you might want to try to see if you could wait until somebody that a private owner have a private sale and you could probably get it for a lot cheaper, because auction houses and certain sellers, they're not going to let that book go for real cheap, period. But if you have like a private owner that really needs money right away, they might be able to let that go for maybe like a lot less. It's like if it's 15,000, they might let it go for 5 to 8,000. You never know. Depends on how fast they need their money. But even with that being said, it's like, even now, it's like, as I go and look at older books myself, especially when it comes to Volume 1 Wonder Woman, I'm seeing people who just, it's like, oh, I'm willing to sell it to you. And it's like, starting price is 200. I'm looking at them like, I know people who have these same issues that would be willing to sell it for half that price or less. And 9 times out of 10, that's not even graded. Yours isn't graded. So unless it's like a very pristine copy, no, I'm not paying that type of money for it. Even though I desire to get every issue of Wonder Woman, especially from Volume 1, I know that's an uphill climb, because Wonder Woman and Sensation Comics and those books from the Golden Age are getting more and more scarce in availability. And those that are still out there in the wild that are owned by private individuals are slowly, not being available. Meaning that they're holding on to these books. They're not hitting the market again. So, unless I know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who has like a big Wonder Woman collection, and able to talk to them and seeing what I could do about, what I can do to get them after they pass away or something to that magnitude, I have to try my best to find them in the wild and just be ready to pay what I feel is a fair price for it. Do I always think fair market value on a lot of these so-called tools are good? Some aren't. As much as I like GP analysis, that is great for graded books. However, there's not really anything really good for raw books, because raw books are overly subjective. And when I say subjective, I mean when it comes down to grading. Unless you have studied and really taken the time to, if I could say it in these terms, really buckle down and study how grading works and honing your skills for grading, it's a very subjective topic. What looks like a 9.8 to one person would be like a 9.0 or 8.5 to another. It really depends on how strict. And I know I'm waiting for Parallax to say, it's like, and half of the people don't have the right tools that a lot of these professional grading companies have to verify a lot of this stuff. And that is true. We don't have all the bells and whistles and nice tools that a lot of these grading companies have to certify that a book is X, Y, and Z. So it makes me wonder, it makes me wonder. It's like I bought two books today. Yeah, I did buy two books. And I was just thinking about which two books did I buy today. I bought a Mr. Miracle 22 from Volume 1 and a Mr. Miracle number 2 from Volume 1. And guess how much I paid for that number 2? I think I paid like $15 for it, plus shipping. Plus shipping. So it was a in good condition. It was in good condition. It wasn't high grade, but it was like mid to low. It was like mid low. It had some some things that were wrong with it. But for a Mr. Miracle number 2, which is the first appearance of Granny Goodness, $15, you're not going to beat it with a stick. You have to understand, reader beaters are what they are. Reader beaters would always be the cheapest way to go. It's like you could probably get like a Mr. Miracle number 2 if it was a reader beater for like $3, $4, $5. Anything above a reader beater, you have to like really take in consideration of actual grade. Can it be fixed up? What would happen if I did press it and clean it and stuff to that magnitude? Will it present better? And everything to that magnitude. But saying all that to say is that I didn't go out of my way to say, oh, I need to get this number 2 and pay $100 and something for it because it is quote unquote a key issue. The book is what it's worth here. Now, depending on what the seller used as fair market value, changes that aspect of what is fair and what is not. If he went by eBay standards, that's not a $15 book. By no means. Even in the condition that it was in, that book usually fetches about 60 to 70. Now, is 60 to 70 accurate? By no means. No, it's nowhere close. The $60 to $70 comes from people's desire to own that book and what they're willing to shell out to have a copy of it. Does not necessarily mean that the value of the book is really that. And that's one of the reasons why I have a major problem with those who use eBay as a fair market source. For one, even if you looked at sold items, you have to do an average of sold items. Just because a couple of people got, $80 for a book does not necessarily mean that your book is worth $80. If you got 3 people that got it for 80, but like 10 other people that got $20 for it, guess what? It's probably going to be worth $20. And you need to price it as such. And I always tell people, if you use eBay as a benchmark, then you're only looking at outlier sales. And people don't understand, what do you mean by outlier sales? These are sales based 9 times out of 10 based upon people's desire to own it. And they are way more, if I could say in this aspect, they're more willing to shell out that money to have that book, because eBay is kind of like that last ditch effort. It's like, I really need to get that book. I'm going to go to eBay. Oh, here's one here. I don't want to go over to Billy Bob's comic book shop and pay $200 for it, but I'll pay $150 here easily. And then to realize that the book is really less than $150. But because those are outlier sales and people are more willing to part with the money, it really doesn't give you a good aspect of everything here. And that's kind of like my argument against those who are into grading books too, because they're up there, it's like, well, you got Go Collect and you got GP analysis. And it's like, well, let me take a look at it this way. GP analysis takes in consideration of multiple sales points, but not every seller reports to them. It does It does take into consideration of auction places such as Heritage, eBay, and a couple other places, but it doesn't take in consideration of every larger comic book store. It does, and stuff to that magnitude too. So the averages gets thrown off to get to actually calculate a actual true fair market value for books. And I could say the same thing for any place like Cover Price and Comic Book Price Guide for Raws. You're not getting sales data from enough comic book stores. eBay is, you're not doing eBay analysis and analyzing those averages correctly. There, as much data as there possibly is out there to get a accurate fair market value for things here, it's just not being done. But here's the real problem in a nutshell. Are sellers willing to give up that information about how much did they really selling their books for? Because it behooves them more so when they use outliers such as eBay sales to drive up their price. So if you see, 5 people are willing to pay $100 for a book that normally goes for 20, guess what? I could convince other people and influence them to say, yeah, this book has sold for $100 and $120 on eBay. I might be willing to be talked into $100 or $80 for this book, knowing good and well that the baseline for that book should be 20. This is the type of stuff that, we as collectors, we fall for it too much. We fall for that hype. We fall for that fear of missing out, or that emotional aspect, or that nostalgia glasses of having to have a certain book. Would I like to have a actual Wonder Woman 1? Sure. I actually own one now. It's a facsimile, but I own it. I got Wonder Woman Archives that has it in there. I own it. But to have the first printing of one, it would be nice. I'm not going to go out my way to spend a couple of $100,000 for it, at least not right now. It wouldn't make any cost justification other than bragging rights here. And that doesn't make any sense to me, to do something just for bragging rights. But then again, you do have collectors that do buy things for bragging rights, to say I have this issue, or I have that issue, and yada yada yada. It doesn't make much sense. And maybe, just maybe, we are shooting ourselves in the foot in that aspect and driving up these prices for no apparent reason. And when I do whatnot sales and everything to that magnitude, and I showed Aaron the other day, it's like, I've been trying to help people, fill in their gaps for like Wonder Woman and She-Hulk and all this other stuff, while they're going to all these other places and paying $5, $6, $8, $9, $10 a book. I barely have people coming in my room getting them for $1 or $2, all because of the simple fact that they're so caught up with that emotional sale aspect at somebody else's place here. And Paralyzed say, I sold an ASM 300 like 4 times and I made money each time. Yeah. I mean, but still, with as many copies of ASM 300, with as many copies of Hulk 181, with as many copies of Giant Size X-Men #1, with as many copies of a lot of these older books that are still out there that is quote unquote high demand, are they really in the dollar figure, in the dollar figures that they're supposed to command here? I don't know. What do you mean your hair? My hair is bugging me. It's touching me. What hair? Anyway, that's a whole another conversation here with her talking about her hair. And I'm not saying that these books aren't popular. It's like don't get it wrong. I'm not saying popular books are bad or anything to that magnitude. It's just more along the lines of like when you look at price guides, when you look at fair market value for these books, and then you take in consideration of the likelihood of you getting this book and how many are out there available for possible to be sold to you, the numbers don't add up to what people are paying. And like I said before, it's like it should be a lot lower, but because of people's nostalgia glasses and everything, they're skyrocketed prices. They're skyrocketed. What was it? Hulk 3, what is it? Hulk 340. That's another book that I sit back and it's like that used to be a dollar bin book, and now if you get a nice one at a 9.8 and everything, that's getting close to a four-figure book. And it's like there's still enough copies of it out there that it doesn't make sense. Oh, okay. So she's having haircut problems. That's what she was saying here. Yeah, that book sucks. Yeah, that cover sucks. It's like the artist man, the perspective is wrong, the story is good, but everybody buys it for the shitty cover. No, everybody buys it because of the artist's name attached to it. And again, that's another nostalgia, FOMO glasses, and everything to that magnitude. Because I don't see people doing the same thing. I believe it was for what was it? X Force number 4. Same artist with a particular sideways cover with Spider-Man on it, but I don't see the high bump in value of that X Force number 4 like that Hulk issue. I mean, but like I said, are we as collectors shooting ourselves in the foot and overvaluing these books the way that we are? I mean, yeah, it has a special place in our hearts, and I want them to have a special place in our hearts. But when it comes to the fiscal and fiduciary aspects of it, are we really paying too much? I mean, even right now, for those who want an Uncanny X-Men 1, and when I say Uncanny X-Men 1, I'm talking about the one from 1963. Is it really worth paying upper four figures for a low grade copy of one? Just saying, you know. Now, granted, I bought my copy of Uncanny X-Men 1 back in the 90s. And back in the 90s, I paid a hefty penny for it because and I had like my significant other's mother's like, you're so stupid for paying $1,100 for a comic book. And I sit back now and it's like, well, that one comic book now has grown at least 5 times its value. So it was an investment. It was a good investment. But even for, like I said, it's like you have to look at the fiscal and fiduciary aspect of it. It's kind of like it is what it is. Just like with Parallax, like would I get upset that she bought, a Fantastic Four number 1 and was able to get one that had Stan Lee's signature on it? And she paid X, Y, and Z amount of money, and then 20 years later, it's like that book has grown, 10 times worth its value. No, I wouldn't be upset. It's a good investment. But at the same time, did rose-colored glasses blind her financial aspect of it? 9 times out of 10, I would say no. There's very rare that once in a lifetime purchases come around, and they, sometimes it is what it is. It's because people learn to jerk off like Comic Tom 101 and instead of AA Ron. Maybe. But again, here's the other aspect. We're also in a day and age where people are trying to master the art of the quick flip and treating these types of books as stock investments. And should it be treated like stock investments? It's not stock. It's not really stock, because when you look at stock, you're really investing in a company, a actual functioning business, as opposed to a product. Products always have shelf life. Businesses don't. And that's the major thing. And I think that was the key thing that Aaron was saying earlier. It's like, he was kind of didn't understand why people are treating comic books like stocks. And the reason why they're trying to treat it like stocks, because the same principles as far as buying, trading, and selling applies. But at the same time, they have to understand that it's not buying, trading, and selling in a company. It's buying, trading, selling a commodity. And if that commodity dies, or that market for that commodity dies, therefore your investment goes down the tubes as well. So you only so in other words, you only really want to back a winner as far as what is good product and what is, as opposed to what is bad in that product. And yep, my Fantastic Four was purchased, cracked, signed, and reslabbed. Yes, Blue Label returned and got it back and reslabbed and look at the value of it now. At least 5 to 10 times that value. That is smart purchasing. And that's a smart purchasing on a book that has been around for more than 40 something years. And that's where a lot of the problems that I'm seeing with modern comics, because people are moving that, well, I should say overinflating that value too quickly. It has a hard crash, and then people up here, it's like, well, when is it going to rebound? It's going to rebound in maybe like 25 to 30 years, when the actual availability of getting that comic goes down dramatically. Yeah, it's like I got it around the 50th anniversary, and now it's about the 64th, coming around August 8th of this year. Yep. So pretty much, books that have history. And you said it earlier. Very quite distinctly. There's a lot of Silver Age books that doesn't really lose its value too much. It kind of flatlines. It either slowly gains or it flatlines a bit. You could say the same thing about Golden Age. It still slowly climbs up, or it plateaus out and flatlines for a bit, and then you might see another little bump and it goes up. But you rarely see, really good Silver Age come down in price, or a really good Silver Age book come down in price. Why? It's mainly because the availabilities of the books are so low that those books are harder to come by. Therefore, when there is even a slight bit of demand, it drives that market back up. I'm up here, I watch other sellers and talk to other sellers of Golden Age books. So I'm up here looking at people who are selling Torchy, Crime Does Not Pay, Wing Comics, crime stories, a lot of the older romance, you know, the older Millie comics, the older Venus comics and stuff to that magnitude. And I'm seeing up here looking at price tags like $3, $4, $5, $6, $7, $800 for books that I would just consider, you know, somewhere between like, you know, a 4.5 and 7.5 in Golden Age. And I'm saying like, man, it's like if he ever come across like a 8 or a 9, that's like a, you know, a $30,000 to $40,000 book all day. Because it's just that, you know, they're not too many few and far between. But at the same time, I was like, I don't have money like that where I could just drop $600-700 on one book. Heck, if I'm dropping $600-700, I'm getting kind of like what I get now for like my pulls. It's like, you know, on my average pull in a month, I think is somewhere about $250 to $300 for maybe what 6 or 7 titles. But even though 6 or 7 titles, that's somewhere close to like 40 to 50 something books a month. But you know, that's a whole nother thing here. Yep. Like Random Wendy will retain its value, but the Diana Prince bookie will always go up a bit faster. And that's only because of fetish people. And I hate to say that. That's really mainly because of the fetish people. Because the Diana Prince ones, when she went without powers, there was a lot of bondage type it covers and everything, and that became kind of like the key thing. The bondage covers became like a key thing for a long time here. Even though in the older Golden Age books, see, she wants me to go on a rant about how people up there are like, well, bondage covers. Like, people don't understand what is really bondage and what is being tied up. It's like Wonder Woman specifically stated that it's like she has to be bound, and for her to be bound, it's not really like tied up in ropes. It's like for her to be bound, it's like you have to like bind her wrist and her feet together for her to be like powerless. But to tie her up in rope and be like this, it's like, oh yeah, she's going to be able to break out of it because that's not her weakness. And then I believe Perez was the ones that talked about the bracelets. That the bracelets was really kind of sort of like a governor dealing with her true power. If the bracelets come off, it's kind of like, you know, she gets to go to full power, but could she really contain everything? And that was one of the things that I liked about the series that I didn't care too much for, which is the Superman Wonder Woman title, because there was a couple of times that she came out of the bracelets and went to her true God form as a result of it, to actually show that she was technically stronger than Superman. But that's a whole different story and everything here. But, you know, going back to that whole aspect, just like the topic that I had talked about several months ago about, you know, why is the Uncanny X-Men #1 that I have at a 1.5 worth more than that Wonder Woman #9 at a 4.5? When I looked that up in GPA analysis and looked the X-Men up, and it's like it's night and day difference, considering the fact that it's harder to get a Wonder Woman 9 than that X-Men 1. You know, it proves the point that maybe we're just shooting ourselves in the foot because of rose-colored glasses and everything here. Oh, Aaron's back. Yep, you missed a lot, Aaron. You missed a lot here. Okay, you missed what I said here, and I'm going to repeat. I'm going to give you the short version of it because I know it's like when you get a chance, you're probably going to rewatch the replay to get the full aspect of it. But what I was saying with older books is that we are letting our nostalgia cause us to pay more than what we should be for books that are somewhat readily available. And I use the example of like Amazing Spider-Man 300, Hulk 181, anything that had Giant Size X-Men 1, anything that has been reprinted over several times to get that first printing. You know, we let our desires and stuff kind of take over instead of common sense here. And one of the things that I was saying is like, as much as I would like to have a Giant Size X-Men 1, I wouldn't go out my way to pay, 5 figures for it or even 4 figures for it. Mainly because of the simple fact that it has been done several times over. And besides, I have a graded copy of Classic X-Men #1, which was one of the first reprintings of Giant Size X-Men 1, plus a brand new backstory that has never been told before. Yeah, rewind. Yep, reprints. And even and let's talk about reprints. As me, people who collect things like Marvel Tales were reprints. Marvel's Triple Action, Marvel's Collector's Edition, or Collector's Items. All of those were reprints. And yet people still overpay for those. So, yeah, we have these, emotional attachments because of nostalgia and rose-colored glasses, but we don't look at the financial or fiduciary aspects of the investment itself. And like I said, if you're a collector of Marvel Tales or Marvel Collector's Items or Triple Action, I forgot what the other one was. There was another one that were reprints. Marvel Adventures was the other reprints, because they did reprints of like X-Men and a couple of other books here. If you were a collector of that, it's like, technically you was collecting the first reprints that ever was produced. And those books are not dollar books by no means. However, I still feel that we pay too much for them. Those are books that, a greater number of them should be preserved, but we still shouldn't be paying hundreds of dollars for them. But it's because of our nostalgia factor that we're willing to pay the extra money for it. I agree, because the backstory, people who don't know about Classic X-Men or the Classic X-Men title, what Classic X-Men is that they reprinted X-Men issues, and normally it's starting from Cochrane's Giant Size X-Men from that point forward. In Classic X-Men, they normally reprinted all of those X-Men. And what they did is that the first part of the issue was to reprint, and the second half of the issue was a backstory dealing with that issue in most cases. And it was one of the more unique things that came out for X-Men back in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. No, it was 90s. It was early 90s. It was like one of the better things that happened in the early 90s dealing with X-Men, because back then it was like, it was harder to come by. And when I say harder to come by, people who own these copies of Giant Size X-Men 1 and everything weren't selling them. It doesn't mean that they weren't available. They just wasn't selling them like how people are like more adamant to sell anything and everything today because it's about the quick flip. So instead of trying to track one down back in the 90s and back then paying anywhere between upwards of $500 or more for a giant size X-Men 1 was kind of like unheard of. But yet at the same time, you could get the classic X-Men 1, which was a reprint, and then I think they also had that silver Marvel Milestone edition as well as a reprint. But they had so many different reprints of that giant size X-Men 1 that it didn't make any sense. And that's the reason why I have my classic X-Men #1 graded. I do have a couple of copies of it raw, but I do have one that is graded. Yeah, early Marvel greatest friends. Yep, those were thickies. Yep, all reprints. But even if you bought a Marvel greatest now, paying a couple of $100 for a reprint for nostalgia purposes, it's more out of emotion than financial responsibility. That's the reason why I feel that with us having rose-colored glasses on, as far as what we remember when we was kids, when we first were starting reading these books, maybe we put too much stock in rekindling that feeling that we're probably spending a little bit too much money in raising the prices for those that come after us here. Now, if you for example, if we went back and talked about the older ASM, and when I talk about older ASM, I'm talking about anything before issue 100. I could understand that because I've been seeing a lot of ASM issues going anywhere between, now, below like 100 and below, starts anywhere be like 150 and up now. And I'm up here, it's like, if we can still get issues like that before we get into like the smaller digits, like 20, 30, 20, 10s and below that, are we really putting the value correctly on them? I mean, I'm not up here saying that it's like you should be able to go and get a Amazing Spider-Man 1 for $1,000. No, I'm not saying that. That is definitely a 5-figure book. Fantastic Four is a 5-figure book. Wonder Woman 1 is a 6-figure book. Those things I kind of understand why, but something like a giant size X-Men #1 should still be barely a 4-figure book. We haven't gotten to the point where those books are not as readily available by sheer numbers in the wild as of yet. You just don't know. And it's like, what is the price for happiness? That's what I'm saying. It's like, to me, that's why I say that's why I brought up the question about, is it really our nostalgia that we're paying that extra price for? Or are we really paying fair market value for that book? I question that. I'm not saying, don't buy it for your own happiness. I was like, no, that's not what I'm getting at. I'm looking at fair market value versus what we think the value is nostalgia wise. If fair market value is saying that, and like I said, I'm going to pick on let's pick on giant size X-Men 1. If a near mint is over 15 grand, my nostalgia glasses would be more willing to give up that 15 grand, knowing good and well that there is a lot of copies of giant size X-Men #1 out there. It doesn't make any sense. And it's like, where does your fiscal sense come in? When does it override your nostalgia in that aspect here? Yeah, it's like those X-Men classes were great because Claremont refined his own writing style by then. Yep. And yeah, I collect ASM Joe and those Marvel, and also those Marvel tales. I love them both. Yep. Marvel Tales sucks. Boo. I tell you one thing, you'll find it 10 times easier to get the first Punisher via Marvel Tales than the actual ASM book. But that's just me. That's just me here. Yeah, I do hurt others when I pay fair market value, maybe because of cap. That's cap. Is it? Is it? Because here's because when people say it's like, but it's capitalism, and I'm up there, it's like, where's the demand? Show me, show me the demand for that book in such a way that it's a must-have for a quarter of the population, a half of the population, something to that magnitude. Then I'll be like, yeah, it's capitalism. I get it. It's a must-have. It's a must-have for everybody, as opposed to a must-have for a very, 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 very small niche group. And that's the reason why I said we as collectors, not we as a nation or we as readers. Collectors are a small pocket of a bigger whole. Very small. We big fish in small pond. But when we go to the ocean, we're barely a drop of water. So that's what I'm saying. You're going to go the capitalism route. It's like, show me the actual true demand, especially based upon the supply of it. 50,000, 60,000 books for a smaller niche market doesn't equal demand like 60,000 books for half a nation. That demand is a little bit different. That demand would mean that the price will skyrocket, and only those that could afford it should be able to afford it. I mean, major difference. I was like, I don't like the whole flippers horde. And I talked about that. I actually talked about that earlier, Aaron. I did talk about that earlier. So that's something that you have to go into rewind. But that was the short version of what I stated, about 45 minutes ago. Is exactly that. It's like our rose-colored nostalgia glasses sometimes cloud our fiduciary sense at times to pay that fair market value when in essence there still is enough copies out there for those who are in the collector's market to get one to a certain degree. Not for every last collector. It's like when you get into like Silver Age and Golden Age, that argument goes out the window. But Bronze Age stuff was still on that bubble before we go over the other side where it becomes a little bit more scarce to get these types of books. But right now, I still believe that there's still enough giant size X-Men #1s, whether in reprint form, in other titles reprint forms is reprint forms, whether it's another title, facsimile, or all this other stuff. A reprint is a reprint, or the actual first printing. There's enough of them out there where you don't have to truly worry about it. But if you want that first printing, there's still enough first printings out there where you could argue that the book should not be a 5-figure book per se. But yeah, I agree. The flipper hordes, the flipping aspect, trying to make this more of a stock market, knowing good and well that it's a commodity, not really an investment into like a company type deal. It's just a lot of stuff that, like I said, we as collectors really need to take that hard look and take that step back to say, hey, something's wrong as far as how we purchase what we love. All the Dubrow morons that love John Bernthal may yeah, ASM 129 skyrocket. And speaking of John Bernthal, I'm still watching Daredevil Born Again, and I just like his character in this series. It's one of the few things that I like about Daredevil Born Again in this aspect, but I've still got to finish watching the rest of it here. I'm still not liking how they're doing Kingpin in this one, but at least they gave me the Punisher that I love, and the wise Akery that I loved in his series. It's like wait, you idolize me? Are you stupid? Are you stupid? It's like, do you really know the pain that I've gone through? It's like, what do you really know about me? I just love how he characterized Frank Castle. His Frank Castle is pretty good. I love reprints on newsprints, Leia, and I like the cover variations. Got it. Yeah, I mean, nobody. That's the whole thing about this conversation. One thing about this conversation, I'm not going to like, oh, the covers are bad and this, that, and the other. It's like, no, it's just the simple fact that a reprint is a reprint. The story is still available for people to get. And the whole thing about variation and everything to that magnitude kind of goes out the door. As long as you have a copy that fulfills the run of all the issues where you're not missing anything, it speaks volumes more so than anything else. But we put more emphasis on having the first print and the so-called 9, 8, 9, 9, and 10, that we kind of leave the realm of, man, this story made me happy, or I like the artwork in that and that makes me happy type aspect of it. So, like I said, it's like, are we really shooting ourselves in the foot in that aspect of it? Yeah, I like the reprints on good newsprint like DC did with Wiz. Fair enough. The DC facsimile books are better than the Marvel ones. You know what? I haven't really tested the paper in that aspect, but you might have a point there. You might have a point there, Parallax, on that. I know I thought I teach you guys about capitalism. I really don't view comics as stock. I don't even, it's like I don't even slap like you guys do. And here's the thing. When people want to talk about slabs, and this is kind of like a side little rant. I'm not going to go into the full blown version of the rant here about to slab or not to slab. My aspect of why I slab is more or less preservation and kind of gain an idea of a locked grade and value for that book. And the reason why I say it in that aspect here is because I'm not looking to flip the book. I'm not looking to make money off of the book in the same aspect of reselling it. What I tend to do, if it's not artwork that I did for sketch cover wise, because any sketchbook that I slab, I do it in such a way where I want to preserve the actual grade quality to send to you. So if I slab it, I'm really doing it more as an artwork presentation than to say that this is a key issue and I drew on it and this, that, and the other, and it should be more valuable. It's like, no, it's overall presentation to give you a better product in the long run. But for those books that are in my collection, I do it more so for insurance purposes and to guarantee that if something did happen, I will get whatever is the true market value at that grade to replace it. And people don't understand. And they up there, it's like, well, Why do I have to get my stuff graded to guarantee that I'm going to get money from my insurance company? Because again, the insurance company will lowball your value because it has not been assessed by somebody of authority as far as condition that can be proven. One of the things that grading companies that say in their contracts when you send stuff out to grade it is that they are guaranteeing that the book was of this condition when it left their hands. It does not necessarily mean that it always stays in that condition. And they specifically spell that out. It does not specifically means that it stays in that condition. But when it left their hands after you paid your hard-earned money for their services, they are certifying that it is of this grade based upon these characteristics and everything, and give a actual certification number that can be applied, that can be looked up by your insurance adjuster, for you can guarantee that you will get what the current fair market value for that book in that condition. The end. Now, what people do as far as selling it afterwards, I could care less. I typically only grade books that I care about preserving the most to guarantee that I have at least a stamp in time that this book was at least, this grade and I could get X, Y, and Z value for it. Now, when you get into starting to do museum exhibits or gallery exhibits and stuff to that magnitude, it goes a long way towards insurance value. Because when you do museums and stuff, they have to insure your book. So if anything happens, if a curator comes by and they're dusting and everything and they happen to drop a slab and it breaks, that's an insurance claim because they have to replace that book. They have to make certain that, they have to make certain that the damages and stuff can be done. Granted, in most cases, it just probably be the case of paying for another reholder. Not that big of a deal. But if something gets stolen, you're guaranteed the value of your book. You have to think deeper and longer into those things here. So, that's one of the reasons why I never really push people into, you need to slap your books and this, that, and the other. It's like, no, it's like, do what is best for your collection based upon how you feel about it. Slabbing is not for everybody. I can tell you that right now. Slabbing is not for everybody, especially if you're constantly reading and rereading and rereading your books. And if you only got one copy of each every book that's in your collection, and it's like, you know what? Maybe slabbing is not for you. In my case, when I have multiple copies of books and I'm sitting up here, it's like one is pristine, one is my reader, and then I have odds and ends in between it. It's like, as far as condition, it's like, yeah, my most pristine book is getting graded. That's going to get preserved. That's the one that I probably going to send off to a gallery showing everything, depending on if I get involved with whatever preservation groups or society that I get involved with. That's the way that I look at it. Will I have books that I get slapped and probably sell later? Probably so. Because you never know how many, well, actually I do know at least with one book. With one book, I have 6 or 7 copies graded, and it's a sick obsession with the Savage She-Hulk #1. But I was still trying to get me a 9.8, but I'm going to be happy with my 9.2. I finally got. I think I have a 9.0 that is a newsstand and a 9.2 that is direct, and I'm going to be happy with those. Those two plus the one signed by David Anthony Kraft. So those 3, and the David Anthony Kraft one, I believe, is a Green Label 5, which again, I can't bring myself to pay the money to get the JSA certified yet. But that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing in a nutshell. I know that you were just cracking wise, but it's nothing wrong with slab. It's nothing wrong with slabbing as long as you look at it from the preservation net. It's like, don't make me sit on your AA run. No, there's no need for violence. There's no wrong answers in this discussion here. There's really none. I understand why all you slab. I get it, but some cars are meant to be open by people. No stop it comments. Are not cars, and you got a very valid point. Just like I said, it's like for those who only have one copy of that issue, I was like, no, you don't grade it. It's one thing to have something that's slab for you to look at to say that I have it, but if you only got one copy and that's the only copy that you have, that's going to be the thing that I read. Especially if you love reading them, I'm going to open it up, read it, get my enjoyment out of it again, put it back in its bag and board, put it away, and then when I feel like it again, it's like, oh, I want to read it again. I can get it back out and read it. But when you got multiple copies of something, you might as well want to think about preserving one for its prosperity and have another one just to read all the time. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to do it any other way. But if you only buy the one copy, it's like, don't slap it. Keep it the way that it is. That's just the way that it is. Now stop it. Yeah, I know. Come on. There's no need to fight. There's no need to fight over something like that. Nah. I know y'all guys are just kidding around, but there's still no need to fight. It's like I'm not going to read my Fantastic Four #1 when I have 17 reprints of it. And that's what I'm saying. If you got multiple copies of it, you might as well preserve the most pristine one that you hold near and dear and just read the other one. it just makes sense. It's like, don't make me punch you in the huge. P.S. You still love me like I love you. Yep. Releasing the beanie trademark. Oh no, she's gonna say it. I knew it. She couldn't resist it. The D stands for dude, bro. She's gonna say it each and every time. At the very least, it's the non-glossy in the facsimile for DC. Yeah, that's true. That is true. A lot of their I lost my train of thought. A lot of their facsimiles are not on glossy paper. And it does last a lot longer too. Yeah, modern DC reprints are better than Marvel. Yep. Preservation. Slabs equal preservation. Yep. All right, my friends. I love you. I'm at my friend's house, so I gotta go. Looking forward to the Amazon. Yes, you should be having that sometime next week because I mailed them off Friday to you. So Fridays, if I send them Friday, they should probably get there by Wednesday or Thursday of this week. And you should have the tracking number so you can always track it. So I know you, and now I forget his name here. Oh, by the way, come this Monday, Aaron would have his $2 show, his $2 fine show, and I will be there. I will not be there just commentating on the books that he's selling. I will have books of my own. So if you're missing Wonder Woman books, She-Hulk books, Alias books, Cerebus books, I'm going to be bringing the stuff that I normally have for Whatnot. We're going to be doing anything between $2 to $5 a book, except for the higher end Volume 1 books for Wonder Woman. But you could chill like a villain with the same thing I'm about to bring to you come this upcoming Monday. So be looking forward to the Psychotronic Squirt Gun, aka Aaron's $2 claim sale. The $2 holler is going to make you scream this week here. Bean says, did you order Mr. A Ron? Yep, he got his he ordered. Yep. That's like I threatened to sit on you, but you know, you're the lover. I have to go with George's mom to an appointment at 2 p.m. Okay. All right. So yeah, it is getting late. It is getting late here. I just real and last week we did run over quite some time here. I think we had like this week with Comic Book Spectrum, we went a 3 hours. We went a 3 hour show. We almost did a 3 hour show last week here. Oh, on Monday. Okay, you're good. So yeah, Monday. You know, Aaron's show is it's like 6 o'clock your time on Monday. I will be there about 6:30 with my wares. I'm looking at my wares right here, and then I might pull some more stuff from storage on tomorrow. So it's going to be good. It's going to be good. I'm going to bring some $2. Have like a lot of $2 and $3 and $4 and $5 stuff here. Yeah, so tomorrow I gotta go to a baptism. George's first granddaughter is being baptized. Yay! It makes me wonder if you're going to say the exact same thing here as you did last time here. Oh no! Yes, it's like I don't know. It's up here. It's like you're up here. It's like if the water touched me, will it burn? No, it will not burn. It will not burn. What makes you think it's going to burn? It doesn't. It doesn't. And I don't understand why people feel that if they're really that evil, that holy water would do something like that. Holy water is supposed to be purified. It's not meant to be burned. No, it won't. No, it won't. You're not that evil where it will burn. Trust me. Yeah, it will freeze you to death. I will give you I will give you that. It will freeze you to death because that water is cold for some reason. It is very, very cold. But no, it won't burn. It won't burn, but it is cold. It is cold. It is cold, you know, but that's the whole thing here. And that's the other thing. It's like, you know, I don't make light of people's beliefs, especially when it comes to religion and everything. I myself is of non-denominational, so I understand other people's traditions and everything, and I don't take light to them, but I understand why they do the things that they do here. So that's the reason why I say it's like, yeah, I know you want to make the joke about it burns, but no, it's not going to burn you. Not that. It's like nobody's up here that evil where it would do that. But if you do get hit by some of that water, it might be just that cold, because I remember when I was baptized, the water was cold too. The water was cold here. George's granddaughters all is like did not cry. They were placed over and the water poured over there. Okay, so they're doing the sprinkle, the sprinkle and the pouring and everything like that. So they're not getting the whole, you know, and this, that, the other, and they had the handkerchief and everything, and then you know, and then you get like dunk. I mean, literally dunk. That's the one that I got. I got the full dunking. It's like, yeah, that water is cold. It is cold, but it is what it is. Marissa didn't, Beanie didn't, and Lils was sick, so she didn't cry. So obviously, yep. Well, that's being poured over your head. I mean, I'm wondering if it would be the same way if they got what I got, the old school Southern dunking, where you're staying, you know, you walk and you have to go down into the water pit and everything. It's like they do their thing and everything, and then dunk, and they pull you back up. Yep. Yeah, into the official altar percent. You with these descriptions. Nope, not the dunk back. Yep. That's old school Southern version of it, like in Ed Wood. Do you renounce Satan? Bill Murray, sure. Now she's having too much fun. She having too much fun, but no, you're not. That's like I don't make light of people's religion and everything, especially being non-denominational. I was like, and that's one of the things that I like about being non-denominational is understanding the difference between tradition and belief system and what is supposed to be good, bad, indifferent, and near and dear to your heart, and what is supposed to be serving what would be a higher power. That's one of the reasons why it's like, people up here, it's like, how can you get along with so many different people of different religions and nationalities? It's like, because you have to understand that tradition is tradition, and what tradition that they hold sacred to them may not be suitable for you, but you have to respect it. And if you do respect it, you pretty much follow what, in most cases, in most Bibles, tell you to do. It's supposed to kind of spread the good word and bring all the nations together. You can't bring all the nations together if you're always constantly poo-pooing everything that they do. I mean, I'm just saying, it is what it is. I get along with everybody unless you're a woke See, Parallax talks like an old school 1950s suburbanite. uh, oh my goodness. I try not to laugh. But it is what it is. And to think. See, you kind of put me back into that mindset from the other day, because I was thinking about one thing here. It's like, as much as people talk about how things are, how this is racist, that is racist, that is racist, it's like, most people who are younger than me probably would not know what true racism is if it hit him in his face in his full blown glory. They get all the after effects, or they get the side effect or the out of context comment that was not meant to be said as that. And I like, I sit back, I think about this type of stuff, and I'm just like, you know what? People in the younger generation may never truly get to see old school true racism anymore. I mean, the old school stuff is gone and lost forever. Triple sorry, Clementine, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's still not there. It's just in a different form that the younger generation would never recognize what it is, as opposed to what it is, as opposed to what it actually is. I like Ike. Yeah, to me, this all safe space jive, Jim Crow 2.0. I'm not going to go there. That changes the course of the topic here, because safe space is a, if I could say it in this term, it is a creation. It's a creation from a generation that has been pretty much sheltered from everything else. So when they come across adversity, they just don't know how to deal with it. And I know you and I had the conversation about everybody getting a participation trophy, but yet there's no first, second, or third. Everybody is unique and special, but yet nobody can be an individual. those concepts are newer concepts here. And being that former military, we had to learn that yes, we are individuals, but we're all a part of one bigger team. And that bigger team becomes more prevalent and more important than you as the individual. And yes, we all have our unique talents, but we have to use our unique talents to be a better big overall whole as a team than being the individual that can do X, Y, and Z. But it is what it is. I'm teaching my girls how to deal with adversity and how to be good winners and gracious losers. Well, if Beanie is still up, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this one time again, because one of my good friends when I was on the collector card game circuit told me this, and it stuck with me forever, and he was right. And the thing that I want Beanie to hear is you can't learn anything new if you're always winning. Meaning that sometimes you got to lose. And when you lose, you learn from it. We all can't be winners. But even when we lose, we win in a different way. We learn something new. We get a newer experience. We get to figure out something brand new. We get to apply that experience in a different way. It makes us better as individuals, but it may not make your opponent better. The only way your opponent gets better is if they suffered loss. So you can't learn anything if you always win, but you're always learning if you're losing. Not to say to always lose, but it's just more along the lines here. It's like you can't win all the time. If you win all the time, you're really not learning anything. You're being stagnated. But if you lose, it's an opportunity to learn something new and to do something different and to apply your skills in a different way. So that's the thing. D is for a drill sergeant. She is. So it's like, yeah, both live. Okay, cool. Exactly. Sometimes it is possible to do your best and do nothing wrong and it's still incorrect, or you lose. Yeah. And that way it's like, even with that, it's like you learn something from it. Even if you do your best and nothing else goes wrong, you learn from the experience. And you learn from the experience because, one, you don't control every aspect of the environment that you're in, especially if you're competing in something. One bad call could change the nature of how you react to certain things. One bad call could also change how you respond to your opponent or to everybody else that in that competition. So you always try to do your best, but you also have to learn from the experience. So, that's the PSA for tonight here. We are now officially in over 2 hours here. I know it's another day, Parallax and them are in Sunday right now. I know they're pretty much no more Saturday for them. We got like another hour to go where I'm at. And on the West Coast, y'all still got the rest of y'all Saturday. Y'all could still party on like it's nothing. So on that note, I'm going to bid you guys farewell here. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for talking, keeping this all interactive here. Because like I said before, this show would be nothing without you guys. I make certain that this show is always interactive, that you guys have a voice in these conversations, that it's not just about me wanting to rant about certain things. It is 100% about sharing the ideas. And a lot of times there's no right answers, but it's just, things that need to be talked about, things that need to be brought out there in the bigger collecting community here. And a lot of times I forego a lot of the stuff as a creator, because sometimes we just got to share what we love and talk about what we love and understand, why we love certain things here. Yeah, they both say it's like tomorrow. Squee! Yep, we are already in Sunday. Yep. So y'all already a day ahead compared to me. They are a day ahead. They're already in Sunday. It's still Saturday here. But nevertheless, thank you so much for being a part of the audience here. And until next week, live life, grow, and be well. And we're out of here. See ya and good night from the Deso Small Press Publisher.